Hello and welcome to another video, and this one is going to be about the public test session. We've got Long Range Missile Update Series. I am late on this as I honestly didn't care. Long range missiles are not really my thing. I hardly play them ever, and when I do, it's just for shits and giggles. And it kind of seems like it was that way as well with the other players in the game, because while I couldn't play on it the day of, I had things to do that evening, I tried it the next day, and even at NA primetime, I sat in the queue for 20 minutes and didn't get a match. There are some interesting changes on this with how they're dealing with the indirect and direct fire weaponry. Okay. There's also some random changes to the weapons that I'm like, whatever. Just they're changing a couple stats on them. Stuff I don't really care about. And yeah, that's it. So how to access the public test. If you had an account before a certain date, you would have access to the PTS. Very standard. They've done that for all their PTSs. Oh, here we go. Weapon changes. So new LRM direct fire, indirect fire behavior. When you have line of sight to your target, you will get the direct fire method, which has a much shallower angle of attack for the missile volley, resulting in the following benefits. So around 40 to 45% reduction in time to the target, and much more per volley accuracy with the target center of mass, less time for AMS to shoot down the missiles, and tuned to reliably be able to fire enemies that are under vertical cover. And they use the overpass on Crimson Strait from the island, which the overpass I like to call the garage area. So if you can get them to hit under the garage from the island, that's great, because normally it would be, well, they're under the garage, LRMs are useless, so I'm not even going to try. It's a benefit. It makes them more useful in more like physical locations, because they're able to do their damage more directly, but it doesn't really get to the core issues with LRMs, which deals more with how we handle lock-ons in this game, but we'll get to that in a minute. And when you have no direct line of fire, it'll be the same as we have currently. And you can see there's a little graph here of the shooter. Indirect goes a couple hundred meters in the air, and then turns down towards the target. And the direct fire just goes like a couple dozen meters and then goes into the target. It's essentially just enough height that if you had a flat terrain and say an enemy mech, an allied mech between you and your enemy, your missiles will most likely get over their head. But it is quite low and very direct. We have some weapon changes to them. For all of them, the spread was increased to make them wider across the enemy mech. The velocity was decreased. My guess is that the direct fire was maybe too fast with 190 velocity, so they needed to nerf that down. So compared to the current LRM speed, direct fire will be faster, and the new indirect fire will be slower. It's essentially that's what I'm getting from that. They've also made it so you can fire more LRM 5s and 10s at a time without getting a penalty, but if you go past that penalty, there is more penalty heat compared to last time, and that is for all of the weapons. There is more penalty heat if you go past your limits. So that's for pretty much the same stats for both Clan and IS, with the Inner Sphere having slightly better spread and heat penalty values. But that's basically it from there. Let's head off into the game. We've got the Mad Dog invasion variant. I love this little guy. He's got a not very meta LRM design on him. It's a bunch of LRM 5s and 6 small lasers for close-in protection. His entire thing is just chain fire LRM 5s to make the enemy go, oh my god, stop the rain already. And that is what he does. But a single AMS on the enemy team and it starts to rip through his single LRM5s, so you switch to firing all 6 of them at once, which is why I'm kind of enjoying the fact that the LRM5 is going to be up to 5 at a time instead of 4. It'll mean a little less penalty when this guy fires, but whatever. Let's get into the testing grounds. Tourmaline Desert is a good one because there is an atlas right there at the start in order to test a lot of stuff, and we can see how our mech performs in a hot environment. But we're mainly looking for that difference in LRM trajectory. When it comes to the spread, the velocity, and the heat scale changes, I don't really care because
Target acquired.
it's like I'm ambivalent to it. I don't use LRMs enough to care, but the direct fire and indirect fire is very interesting. So we can see here we got a nice lock. I've got the full sensor tree on this, so I have all of the radar decay. So I can come down here and lose line of sight. That should be enough to lose it. And after a couple seconds, I should lose his lock. Yep, there we go. Then I can back up a little bit to get it back. You need to be seeing, I believe, like the center of the mech. So even though I can actually see the head and the shoulder, this doesn't count as a lockable target because there just isn't enough profile there. So we can get up here, lock on, and we can start firing our LRMs on chain fire. And we can see that they are hardly clearing the terrain at all, really. They're just going straight into the enemy atlas on that trajectory. But if we move forward, we're going to see at some point, right there probably, yep, there it is. They switch into the indirect mode and will continue that way until I lose my lock. So when it comes to that, that's really interesting. That makes it so that, say, situations where like these rocks here would get in the way, like if I fired indirect over there, it would arc up and hit the rocks on its way out. That occurs in some situations that this allows you, if you have direct line of fire, to get around that. Also, it's just faster to get to the target. So if we see, when I start firing again, there's a constant hitting on the target. You can see it's a constant flashing in the top right. But when it makes that switch to indirect, which I need to back up a little bit more here, there is a break because the indirect missiles are taking longer to get there, so they have that little bit of time in between. So yes, the missiles are getting to the target faster. And we can see that if we go down, shoot some indirect, and then as those indirect are in the air, we come up and fire some direct again, and our direct fire basically caught up to our indirect missiles and was able to make it to the target almost ahead of them, even though they were in the air already. So that change is good. It's going to promote people to get some direct line of fire, even if it's just for a second, to like launch a volley and then hide back into their cover, and then launch another one from cover, and then come forward, launch another one right before they get back into cover, and just do that kind of thing. Okay, that's fine. But now this is where the video is going to change. We've only been in it for a few minutes here, and pretty much that's my thoughts on the PTS. It's interesting, it's fine, it's probably good, but I don't really play LRMs that much, so I don't really care. Also, this doesn't address any of the underlying issues that I see of why LRMs are such a polarizing weapon, and why they suck so badly in some situations, and why they're oppressive in other situations. As it just has to deal with how you get locks, how you keep locks, and everything about that. Imagine a situation where you are an LRM mech and you've got a good target lock and you're firing off some missiles and the mech is moving along and there is like a signpost or like a traffic light, or maybe something a little bigger than that because I'm not being ridiculous, a little piece of crystal, just a single little piece of crystal that is just the size of a mech. and the mech that you're targeting walks past it. Doesn't stop and hide, just walks past it. If they don't have radar deprivation, you keep your lock and you keep firing, and you're being effective against them. But if they have radar deprivation, that instant of not being on your sensors means you lose them. So then you have to go and say, well, I lost my lock, therefore I'm gonna have to start getting it again. And you take the time to relock, and then they go behind another little crystal or something, or a corner of a building or something along those lines. You lose it again, and now you can't get your lock again, so you're sitting there like say there was a light right here that ran out from there and was running across here. I would start backing up because I want to get some space. He's a light. I would start locking onto him. He went behind there. Boop, lost lock. Okay, he's back out. Going back. He went behind that little piece of hill there. Damn, lost lock. All right, coming along here. He's running along there. I barely get lock. I fire off a set of missiles, but then he goes behind that piece of cover, and the missiles lose lock and crash into the ground behind him, and then he runs out around here and then comes straight in at me and then kills me because he's in my 180. I've had those situations before while running LRM mechs, and there's nothing you can do about it because the guy's got full radar depth. And it's not anything that costs tonnage or critical slots or anything when it comes to your combat performance, like for your mech. It's all in the skill tree, and you just be like, I'll just get radar derp. Like on every single one of my mechs, everywhere, I have at least 60% of it because it's so good. On some mechs, I'll even invest 100% of it because then you can just say, well, screw missiles, I don't need you anymore. Really, my 60%, my average there, is more of an insurance against missiles than actual 100% missile defense, because at high levels, people know this, that it's pretty much really hard to get locks, so they don't really run missiles. But then, if getting locks is inconsistent and such, using mechs like this, like just constant lock, constant stream of missiles that is meant to just be an annoyance and a DPS mech, this isn't effective. Very ineffective. What is effective is that while you may not get many chances, you need to make those chances work and make those chances be a success. So therefore, you're going to get mechs like the Supernova A or the, what NovaCat it is, I think it's the B, that have like 100 missiles per volley. And they'll just come back here and they'll go and they'll hide in their corner and they'll just wait. And when they get that lock, it doesn't matter if that lock is going to be good or not. They'll just fire everything, because if it is the one that is good, if just so happens by chance they're able to keep that lock until it hits, they'll take off something because they're hitting with so many missiles. There is no space for a mech like this that only shoots 30 missiles per go, because getting locks is so inconsistent. It's so feast or famine. You can't, like, it's a joke nowadays when a person on your team says, I've got LRMs, hold locks for me, and people go, ha, because there's no bloody way they're standing out in the open when there is so much damage being thrown around, when that extra second or two of them standing in the open could mean another pair of heavy Gauss flying into their center torso. It's not something that they can take. All other mechs are going to be the type that are going to see the target. Oh, okay, there he is. All right, we got to get all ready. If we compare between my lasers and my missiles here, I'm going to fire my missiles as soon as I get a lock. I'm going to fire my lasers as soon as I can hit the target. And I got to lose the lock here so that... Come on, lose the lock. There we go. You can see the difference between the amount of time it takes. I can hit the target, fire the missiles, and I'm already back in cover. If I was my opponent, I would have dodged those missiles because I was already starting to move back into cover. And that's the thing. The LRMs can't trade because they require the person to be in the open and you to be staring at them in the open. And so while they're great at DPS, they can't trade that well. And if the person had radar deprivation, it makes it so it's almost impossible to hit them. I think I have another little bit of video of me with an LRM mech. It was over there. My buddy was doing pop-tarting with his mech on that little crystal, and I'm standing down there where the cicada is, and I'm trying to shoot him. And every single time I shoot, he just lets go of his jump jets and falls into cover, and all my missiles hit the ground and do nothing to him. Because it's so easy to break lock, and it's so easy to out-trade an LRM mech as long as you have a piece of cover. I mean, if they catch you in the open, you're dead. But that's the part about LRMs I don't like. They're so feast or famine. It's either you kill the enemy outright, and you just rip them to shreds. Like, imagine polar highlands, and the enemy has no ECM or radar deprivation, and you have a narker on your team. Like, you get narked on polar highlands, it is essentially a death sentence. There is no coming back from that. But flip that around, and if you are, even on polar highlands, if your team is a bunch of ECM and radar deprivation, you can dodge thousands of missiles with no problem. So, I don't know. I've got a bunch of ideas on how that could be changed, and how it could be made better. I'd like LRMs to be more consistent, and I believe that was my Discord pinging, so if you guys are probably all like, oh my god, I gotta check my Discord in the middle of a Kanajashi video. No, that's because I didn't disable my notifications before doing this, because it shows my level of apathy for this topic. I didn't even disable my shit. I don't know, it feels like a surface level band-aid for missiles to make them slightly less worse, when not addressing the real issue of lock-on weapons and information warfare is so under-implemented in this game. It's annoying. Like, I'd like to see, just rattle off a few things, as this video is probably way too long already. I'd like to see target acquisition that is based on mech size. Should I be able to see this cicada at this range? Is it large enough for that to be appropriate? If there was an atlas beside it, that atlas is obviously larger, so should it be sensed at the equal range? Right now it is. Everybody's sensed at 800 meters unless you have something to change that, like ECM or a Cyclops standing beside you or something like that. Is that fair? Should we have it so that that cicada is targeted at a closer range, so it gives lights a little bit more stealth? It also makes assaults a little bit easier to target. Should the difference in range affect things like target lock-on? They already have that for like the details in the top right. I can't really do it there because it keeps moving, but the top right of the screen, you can see the mech details of their damage. If I target that guy, it takes a couple seconds and then it pops up. If I target the catapult, it takes less time for it to pop up because the catapult is closer. Let me actually get real close to this catapult and I can show that maybe with a little bit of better difference there. But they have that, they have the technology. So cicada, 1, 2, 3, 4, pops up. Catapult, 1, 2, that pops up. So they have the ability to make it so that things change based on how far away mechs are. Let's make it so that maybe this catapult is easily targetable. This target reticule goes faster because it's closer than that guy because it's further away. But right now, I would suspect they're the same. 1, 2-ish. 1, 2-ish. The same speed. Is that fair? Should we change that? Like, there's so many things we could change about how we get lock-ons, how they're used. Like, another thing, personally, I'd like it so that LRMs didn't fire unless you had a lock on. That makes sense. Treat them like streaks. I would apply that to ATMs as well, because I don't like, if you have a lock on weapon, it should be used while locked on. Like, it's a safety feature. That's just me wanting to be able to, when I'm in situations where I'm fighting for a lock and I want to get my missiles away, the instant it locks, I want to be able to just come forward and hold down my fire button, and the instant it locks, my missiles fly out. That would be cool. I should do a whole another video where I talk about my perfect information warfare and lock-on mechanics. I'll do that. I'll do that this coming weekend. I'll put out a video like that. But for now, again, what they're doing in the PTS is sort of like, that's fine. Don't really care, because I'm not going to use LRMs because they're too inconsistent. I'd just rather use DACA or PPCs or laser vom because it's consistent. If I see something, I can hit it. I don't have to worry about getting a lock on for it. Even if I can't see it, in the sense of I can't get a lock or anything, just shoot it center torso. Who cares? I'll kill it eventually. I don't need the top right information to kill a mech. I just shoot it enough and it'll die. I know I'm consistent enough with my aim that I can pick out a piece and kill it. So LRMs will go into the waste bin for me. Kind of a downer, but that's what it is. That's going to be it for me for this video. I'll make my perfect lock-on mechanics information warfare video sometime this weekend, and hope that gets implemented to the game.
Target acquired.
Thanks for watching, and good hunting.